This is a KRQE Winter Weather Special.
Hello and welcome to the KRQE News 13 Winter Weather Special. I'm Chief Meteorologist Grant Tostrud. Winter in New Mexico can be a challenge to predict. Some years we're digging out from massive snowstorms, and then the next we're left with hardly any rain or snow at all. Over the next half hour, we'll be breaking down what you can expect this winter, how snowpack impacts our rivers and water supply, and how all of it could impact you. We're also watching sea surface temperatures all the way in the eastern Pacific again this winter, and how what's happening thousands of miles away could help determine how much snow we see right here in New Mexico. But before we get to all of that, let's take a look at how much snow we see on average with meteorologist David Burgett.
Over the course of a winter season, our average snowfall across southern Colorado and New Mexico depends, of course, on elevation and on location. Specifically into the northern mountains is where we see our highest snowfall totals over the course of a winter season. Along the Sangre de Cristo Mountains and Taos Ski Valley and also in Red River, we do have those snowfall totals ranging more than 200 inches to 300 inches, while the highest is in southern Colorado at Wolf Creek Ski Area at 430 inches or more. In Albuquerque, we do have our average snowfall just less than 8 inches. While heading more off to the west, in Grants and Gallup, we're averaging just about 15 to more than 33 inches worth of snowfall. But transitioning over to the southern portions of New Mexico into the southwest is where we do have the least amount of snowfall in a given season. Around Las Cruces, just averaging about 1.2 inches and right around 2 into Deming. But once again, in the higher elevations, we do have along the Sacramento Mountains in Ruidoso and Cloudcroft with the higher totals, just around 30 inches to 70 inches, while Truth or Consequences is on 3.6 and Roswell just around 8. Depending on that location and into those elevations, we typically will have higher snowfall totals like on this map here, into those bright colors, into the purples and also those bright whites. We do have those higher elevations there in the Sangre de Cristo Mountains where they average just about more than 100 inches per winter season. So again, depending on that elevation and location is where we'll see the highest amount of snowfall across the land of enchantment, but that's just an average snowfall. It doesn't mean that we're going to see that during the winter season. We could get more or less.
But are we actually going to see that much snow this winter? Well, if La Niña has anything to say about that, we could be in store for another drier than normal winter. Here's meteorologist Ryan DePhillips with more on this year's developing La Niña.
The La Niña pattern is more likely this winter. Typically during a La Niña pattern, we see that jet stream north of New Mexico that usually allows for drier and warmer conditions. Most of the cold, the rain, the snow in the Pacific Northwest, the northern United States into the East Coast. So something that we'll keep an eye on. It all has to do with what's happening in the equatorial Pacific Ocean as sea surface temperatures, because of trade winds moving on through, actually drop those sea surface temperatures in the equatorial southern eastern parts of the Pacific Ocean off the coast of South America. Cooler than normal sea surface temperatures usually allows for this pattern to actually move on through. And what we'll also see is that pattern actually changing toward the end of winter. So we're talking about between especially later November, December through early parts of even spring. Sea surface temperatures in the equatorial Pacific will be likely cooler than normal, but back above normal as we head closer to spring. So that will change the pattern. So something we'll keep an eye on, as if we do get that typical La Niña pattern because of cooler than normal sea surface temperatures in the equatorial Pacific Ocean toward the southeastern parts of the Pacific Ocean, we'll likely see drier and warmer conditions in New Mexico.
La Niña isn't the only player in town this winter, though, especially with a weak La Niña. Other climate patterns could bring us more active weather. Here's meteorologist Josh Redwine with the other climate modes we'll be watching.
Thanks, Grant. Yes, we have a lot of those different climate modes in play this winter season, and a couple that we're looking at is the first one being the Pacific Decadal Oscillation. And typically what we're seeing with the Pacific Decadal Oscillation, or the PDO, are those cooler than average sea surface temperatures off the western coast of North America. Now, this is a very long-term forecast and climate prediction here. So once more, we're seeing those cooler than average sea surface temperatures off the west coast. And when we see that coupled with La Niña, that can really enhance those drier conditions here across the desert southwest of North America. So that could be what we're seeing this winter season. But another that we're looking at is the Madden-Julian Oscillation, or the MJO. And that's pretty much just a bunch of storms that travel from west to east every 1 to 2 months along the equator. And when we're seeing a very active Madden-Julian oscillation, that can really draw the jet stream further south and over the desert southwest and bring in more of those active conditions and more periods of those active weather. So what we're seeing is a lot of different players at bat here this winter season, and we're going to keep an eye on it and keep you up to date as it moves through. Grant, back to you.
Last year, New Mexico had the driest winter on record. When we come back, we'll take a look back at last year's winter, and we ask the National Weather Service what will happen if we have another dry winter this year. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Last year, New Mexico had one of the driest winters on record, in part thanks to another weak La Niña. The winter actually began, though, with an impressive early season snowstorm in November, with some mountain communities picking up record snowfall. Several feet fell in some places. Both I-40 and I-25 were shut down, with Albuquerque even picking up some snow. Following the November storm, December was quiet with very little precipitation, sunshine, and above normal temperatures. Nearly the entire southwest United States was precipitation free. December was actually warmer than November for some parts of New Mexico, and in Albuquerque, it was the second warmest December on record. With the new year came bitterly cold temperatures in January. Several rounds of Arctic air brought well below average temperatures across the state. Despite the cold, it was a relatively dry month. The snowpack was already running significantly lower than normal. February was again very dry and now unusually warm. But a storm in the middle of the month brought beneficial snowfall to the northern mountains. And in March, New Mexico's windy season started early with several major dust storms. A record number of dust storm warnings were issued by the National Weather Service, and winter storms were hard to come by. By mid-March, the snowpack for Taos was at only 26% of average, as the stretch of dry weather caused a large expansion in the drought across New Mexico. Winter precipitation has a direct impact on our rivers and can even have an effect on our spring fire season. So what happens if we have another dry winter? Meteorologist David Burgett explains why a good snowpack is vital during the winter season.
Water is probably the most precious resource we have here.
Most of that water in New Mexico comes from our winter snowpack.
In the most general sense, it refers to the depth of snow that you accumulate throughout the winter season.
Or what Andrew Mangum with the National Weather Service refers to as SWE, or the snow water equivalent.
And that we just think of as inches of liquid precipitation that is there if all the snow melts.
Recently, snow piles haven't been stacking up in Albuquerque. This year, we could possibly fall short too.
The Climate Prediction Center with the National Weather Service is calling for below average precipitation this winter.
Which is partly due to La Niña developing in the equatorial Pacific, which typically brings drier than normal weather to the land of enchantment.
And a lot of that's tied to the fact that we're seeing the 5th La Niña winter in the past 6 years.
But it doesn't always guarantee that we won't get more than our fair share.
We talk about La Niña effects. It's not a lock. I would say out of the last, 22 La Niñas, about 14 of them have resulted in below average snowfall.
However, if the snow doesn't stick this winter,
it means worsening drought in the northern part of the state and the northeast. It means more serious fire weather conditions.
It also means less water for those who live downstream on some of the state's major rivers.
When we're talking about snowpack in the northern mountains and in southern Colorado, that's a major source of water for both the Rio Grande and the San Juan River.
And we have already seen what a low snowpack can do.
The river went dry back on July 13th because of record low snowpack and the inability to store any native Rio Grande water.
If we fall short this winter, it could mean another long fire season in the spring.
Be careful. we really don't want another bad fire next year.
In Albuquerque, David Burgett, KRQE News 13.
The winter of 2021 into 2022 was the 13th driest on record in New Mexico. That spring, we saw a record number of acres burned by wildfires. The record prior to that was set in 2011 when New Mexico was coming out of the 4th driest winter on record. Well, climate change is making our atmosphere more unpredictable. Seasonal forecast models are often trained using historical data. However, that historical data is becoming less representative of the current conditions due to our warming climate, causing higher uncertainty in the long-term forecasts. Meteorologist Ryan DePhillips and Josh Redwine show us how our winter climate is changing right here in New Mexico.
Temperatures have continually been warming up for the New Mexico winters. This is from December to January. This is around the Albuquerque metro, dating back all the way since 1896. The source, National Centers for Environmental Information, you can see that trend, especially in recent years, of warmer than normal winter temperatures. Our 1900 or so to 2000 mean is around 37 degrees or so, and ever since then it would be even warmer than that from 2000 all the way to the 2024-2025 winter, where our average temperatures have been closer to the 39-degree mark, and our warmest winter on record was from 2016 to 2017, 2.8 degrees warmer since 1970 in terms of winter temperatures in New Mexico. And every winter since 2013 has been above average. 4 of the 10 warmest winters have been since 2000. So it's been very warm, and we will continue to watch out for more of this pattern to come. But now here's Josh Redwine, who will talk about winter precipitation.
All right, when it comes to precipitation during the winter here in New Mexico, we can have a wide array of different types of precipitation and different amounts. As we take a look here at this graph, it does go all the way back to 1896. But what we're going to look at here is right between 1970 through 2025. You can see this blue line here where we have seen a constant decrease in the amount of precipitation that we see each winter season. On average, we have seen about 0.2 of an inch less through the past 40 years or so, with the wettest winter being back in 1904 and 2005, and the driest being just last season. So we can have a lot of dramatic variability between each season. And as we look ahead at our April snowpack, so what we're seeing during the month of April on the ground, typically here in New Mexico, we can see we are significantly below average in that snowfall total. So we are unfortunately on that dying end of that. But as we look at our start in the melt season, we're typically also coming in several days in advance, up to 20 or more in terms of that melt season, beginning earlier and earlier each and every year.
Coming up, it's the part of the winter weather special you have all been waiting for, our official forecast for this winter. Stay with us, we'll be right back. To help forecast for this winter, we'll look back on previous winters that had similar climate conditions like the winter we're heading into. So let's take a look at these numbers. These are similar years we can look back on as recently as last winter. And if you remember, last winter was one of the driest we had on record. Other similar winters were 2022 to 2023, 2017 to 2018, 2013 to 2014, and then 2001 to 2002, sticking within the last 25 years to follow a similarly changing climate. But if we look back on those winters at a few cities across New Mexico, we'll start down in Roswell, and you'll notice a pattern start to emerge within all of these locations. Many of these winters had above average temperatures in Roswell by a couple degrees at least, and almost all of them had well below average precipitation. Remember, that's a mix of rain and snow. You come up here to Albuquerque, and last winter we were over 1.5 inches of precip below average and almost 2 degrees above average. The exception to this, though, was in 2022 and 2023. Then in 2017 and 18, 13 and 14, well above average in terms of temperatures and well below average in terms of rainfall and precipitation. And you go to even 2001 and 2002, and we were over an inch below average here in the metro. Up in Chama, a more representative example of up into the mountains in northern New Mexico, take a look at last year. Almost 3 degrees above average and almost 6 inches of precipitation below average. Well below average and one of the driest winters on record up there. Again, 2022 to 2023 was a bit of an exception, but 17 and 18 and 13 and 14 and even 01 to 02 precipitation was below average. So we're using this to put together what could be our winter like this year. Overall, across New Mexico, the state as a whole, we look back on those same similar winter conditions. Back in 2001 to 2002, we were just slightly below average. Back in 2017 to 2018, 2013 and 14, average temperatures across New Mexico were above average, and so were last year. In fact, we sat almost a little over a degree above average last year across New Mexico. This is where there's a bit of more of a trend statewide, looking at precipitation. All these similar weak La Niña years, along with other climate patterns, all had below average precipitation across the entire state. So we're using that information to help put together a forecast for this winter. And this is what we're expecting. High confidence that we're going to see above average temperatures all across New Mexico. That's the easiest part of this forecast. So you can expect to see still some cold snaps, but overall, when we look back at winter, it's going to be above average again across nearly the entire state, which means we could be looking at more rain than snow in parts of New Mexico. But if you're hoping for a snowy winter, a little bit of good news, could see near average conditions across the northern mountains, meaning we could be looking at near average snowfall amounts in northern New Mexico. Even here in Albuquerque, we could be looking at near average precipitation, but because of those warmer than average temperatures, again, we may be looking at more rain than snow here in the metro again this winter. Southern New Mexico, though, a lot of forecast models pretty consistent that we're going to be looking at below average precipitation across the southern half of the state, and then a little bit of glimmer of hope there up into the San Juans in New Mexico and southern Colorado. Thanks to La Niña, that can help to draw in some storms from the northwest and bring in some heavy snowfall up into the San Juans once again. So La Niña will likely remain the dominant weather pattern for most of this winter. We're going to look at that very La Niña-like pattern that Ryan was talking about earlier in this show. That's expected to stick around through most of the winter. We're still going to get a few winter storms. We're still going to have periods of wetter weather along with some cold snaps, but those storms are going to be farther between, just like they were last year. We'll go periods with drier and warmer weather across the state this winter. However, like we've also mentioned, other climate patterns could bring those more active periods of weather, offsetting some of La Niña's impacts. And this is some good news too. Climate models are pretty consistent that La Niña is going to start weakening as we head into early 2026. And that means that we could start to see some more active weather once again as we head into the new year. So unfortunately, once again, it's not looking like an overly rainy or snowy winter here in New Mexico. But does that also mean we won't see a lot of snow again here in Albuquerque? Well, when we come back, we put the team of KRQE meteorologists to the test with our own predictions of how much snow we will see this winter. All right, so a lot like last winter, this winter, our official forecast for New Mexico is near to below average precipitation across the state. Similar to what we saw last winter. Just like last winter too, I wanted to have a little fun again and bring back our snowfall forecast competition where each of the KRQE News 13 meteorologists make our predictions for how much snow we think we'll get in Albuquerque this year. Now looking back at last year, we had one of the lowest snowfalls on record with just 2.1 inches of snow. That's 5.8 inches below average and the 5th lowest amount of snow on record too. Just want to say, for the second year in a row, I did get the closest total last winter. So there's some stiff competition here this year, guys. So we're going to start with Ryan, who was second closest last year. Okay. I want you to give your guess on how much snow we're going to get this year and why.
Yeah, I put 4.5 inches or more, exactly the number, 4.7. There we go. And because La Niña pattern, typically drier, warmer than normal, kind of comparing to last year, I'm like, sometimes all it takes is one little snowstorm. So
that'll make or break a season.
Yeah, I think maybe a little bit more than last year.
Yeah. Fair enough. All right, Josh, you had the highest snowfall forecast last year, so I'm curious, what are you thinking now for this winter?
So last year I was a little ambitious. This year I'm going a little more conservative with my forecast. I'm at 4.3 inches just because of what we saw last year, plus also that La Nina pattern moving through for this winter, typically bringing in those drier conditions like Ryan said. So I'm going to go a little bit lower than average, or significantly below average. But conservatively, I feel confident in my 4.3 inches.
And what's amazing too is even 4.3, it sounds like well below average, but that's still over double what we actually got last winter.
Exactly.
Right.
So,
That's crazy.
you know,
Exactly. It's still a little bit ambitious, but I feel a bit better about it.
Not quite the total you had last year, though.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, David. So this is David's first winter here in New Mexico now. So we'll give you a little bit of a break. We'll go easy on you this year.
Thank
we helped you out a little bit. It was funny because when David first did his forecast, he guessed the same exact amount of snow as Josh did. So I was like, okay, I'll give you a mulligan this winter. And we revised your forecast just a little bit. But what was your forecast this winter? I'm curious overall why you thought that.
So 4.2 inches is what I went with for this season. I know we're going to that La Nina pattern, so we're going to see typically drier than normal conditions, a little bit more than warmer than normal conditions for this winter, potentially. So I just figured since the last year and the last few years we've seen some drier than normal conditions, so just go with 4.2.
Yeah, I mean, even if we're close to average, and this is where we get into my thought for this forecast too, is that temperatures still look like they're going to be well above average this winter. So
Seems like that.
even if we get a wet winter with warmer temperatures, it could be more rain than snow.
Exactly.
And I think that played into all of our forecasts this winter as well. So that leads me to my guess this winter. I went for 3.9 inches. Again, all of us well below average for this winter season once again, which is what a lot of the forecast models are hinting at, like Ryan, Josh, David all said. We all looked at La Nina. We know the typical pattern. The climate forecast models are all hinting at that same pattern of near to below average snowfall, but with warmer temperatures, it could mean more rain than snow. So, you know, it's going to be a tough one this year. I remember last year and even the year before that, we were pretty spread across the board when it comes to some of these snowfall totals. This year, we're all pretty similar.
Yeah. Now, honestly, I think about that November snowstorm we had last year because, you know, all about elevation, where it's like, ooh, the Sunport, and then not too far up, what, a foot of snow, Sandia Peak, 3 feet of snow.
Yeah. And like you said, we had that snowstorm last winter in November.
Right.
It was kind of bookend by 2 snowstorms. We had that one in November and then one in late April.
Right.
And brought us some significant snowfall amounts across New Mexico. So it kind of falls outside of your more typical snowfall. It would still be included in here. But even in Albuquerque, despite all that active weather, the Sunport sometimes just misses out on a lot of the snow.
Really does.
Yeah, it really does.
I will say I'm very confident, but I will happily be wrong if this is way above. If we actually get way above what we're doing.
And that's the thing, people at home. I think we would all much rather shoot low on our forecast, and there end up being more snow than promising more snow, and it being drier in the winter.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. But hopefully, if there's a big snowstorm, maybe I'm closest. We'll see.
Yeah, well, that's what we can hope for. I sure hope that we'll get a big snowstorm this winter, too. One that'll hopefully bring us at least closer to average for this winter. Well, so we'll see what happens. Well, thank you all for your predictions. And if you at home want to play along, too, feel free to send us your own snowfall predictions. You can either email us at krqe.com/weather or reach out to us all on social media. We'd love to hear your thoughts on how much snow you think Albuquerque is going to get this winter. Well, that'll do it for the KRQE News 13 Winter Weather Special.
And we hope that everyone has a safe and fun winter.
And remember, you can always stay up to date with the latest winter weather here on KRQE, krqe.com, and the Kirky Now app.
You can also find all of us on social media.
Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Sponsored by National Roofing.